Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. In today's video, I've got a Sam Raimi movie t-shirt on. I've got a Sam Raimi movie poster behind me, and can anyone take a guess why? That's because we're going to be talking about the first Sam Raimi film to release in nearly 4 years, that being Send Help. Yep, we're going to be reviewing the film today. I just got back from seeing it, and I want to give you all my thoughts on whether or not it was good, whether it was bad, and whether or not it actually lived up to my expectations. Now listen, just to be completely honest with you guys, I was pretty excited for this movie. The thing is, January is always the most dead month of the year for movies, so you kind of have to be skeptical no matter who's directing the film. But Sam Raimi, man, listen, I know I already said his name like 10 times. He is the guy. He did the OG Spider-Man films, right? He has all these horror elements. He did Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I think he's a great director, so I was excited to see what his return to horror would look like after all these years. But was it good, was it bad? I say we just kick into things here, and I give you guys my opinion. And make sure you stick around, though, to the end of the video to see my rating of the movie. But listen, before we get into this review, please be sure to drop a like if you like this type of video, and also subscribe. It would mean the world to me, especially if you guys want to talk about movies, TV shows, and everything in between. But this movie, let's talk about it, guys. Let me just start off by saying this. The best way that I could describe what this movie is it feels like a studio came to Sam Raimi and they were like, hey, listen, we just want to put out like a silly little horror movie in January. Not going to be anything too crazy. We just want to make a couple dollars. Do you think that you could kind of just give us like a typical horror, January film? Sam Raimi looked them dead in the eyes and said, no, because he was still going to try to make the best movie that he could. Because again, I feel like every single January, we are just getting dud after dud after dud in terms of horror films. Studios are trying to make a cheap buck. But listen, Sam said no, and he said, I'm going to try to make a good film, because this is a good movie, okay? Let me just cut to the chase here. Was it as good as I thought it would be? Maybe not, but I did have my expectations pretty high. But either way, I still thought it was solid through and through. Let me start off here with, of course, talking about the Sam Raimi style, because this guy's crazy. This is a rated R film. There's a lot of blood. There's a good amount of gore in here. That is one of my negatives, actually, which I will talk about in a little bit. But I've got to say, I feel like this is just clearly Sam Raimi just having a good time with a very unique concept. Our two main leads here are Rachel McAdams, who just teamed up with him in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and then Dylan O'Brien, someone that I'm so happy is finally getting to be in like a pretty cool movie. I feel like, I don't know, I just always want to see him doing great stuff because I really think he's such a fun and like versatile actor. And this is not the only time we've seen him in a survival type of film. He literally did an entire Maze Runner trilogy, where maybe the first movie is the only one that's like really, truly survival. But either way, he's always just a great time. And one thing that I love about this movie is that it allows both of them to really just be weird and wacky and crazy. Both because of the concept and the fact that when you're on a stranded island, you go insane, but also, and I don't mean to keep hammering this and annoying you guys, because Sam Raimi's a weird guy, and I love that about him. And he's like, you could just feel him basically pulling both of these actors, both of their weird sides out. And he's like, listen, guys, I need you to just kind of go off. Do whatever you want. Make whatever noises and crazy faces that you guys want. Do whatever weird body movements you guys want to do. Because in this movie, I need you to go crazy, basically. And they were like, okay. And it totally worked. This is a side of Rachel McAdams that I have really never seen, and I absolutely adored her in this. I thought that she was kind of like the highlight for me, but her and Dylan O'Brien have such great chemistry, and there's times where they like each other, there's times where they hate each other, especially because of this premise, and it sets up such a fun dynamic where a bunch of weird chaos ensues. And speaking of, there are a ton of very fun scenes. I'd say there's maybe like 4 or 5 just really weird, wacky scenes, and the plot kind of starts to develop over time. Things get a bit weirder and crazier because at first we're kind of just on a survival island. We got to figure out what's going on, but then the relationships kind of start to get in the way. We see, again, some odd things kind of start to happen, and I really enjoyed that part of the film. From there, I like how they spent some time in the beginning of this movie developing our characters, because that kind of gives them like a foundation so that I actually care about them the rest of the movie, because this movie is like a solid length horror film. It's like an hour 53 minutes. Usually I feel like, horror films these days are like 90 minutes or whatever, especially again like these January ones, but they take a solid like 15 minute or 20 minute even chunk of the beginning of the movie to just set these characters up, kind of establish where they are in the world and what their relationship is with each other, especially our main two characters. And you kind of see how this is going to play out as things get further in the film. Just to get into some negatives here while I kind of have you, I will say that, let's just say there was like maybe 3 or 4 really crazy standout scenes in here. There's definitely a lot of downtime between those scenes, and there's a lot of like interesting conversations that happen, and even just really beautiful moments, you could say, or like interesting moments. But I will say, I do wish this film was chopped down maybe 10 minutes somewhere in the middle, or on the opposite end of that, I wish there was maybe like 1 more or 2 more interesting scenes to kind of see what else would play out on this island, because again, we do get to see some interesting scenarios occur, but I wish we got to see maybe just like 1 or 2 more things transpire. But either way, I do think that it was a pretty fun time, and from there, I don't really know if I completely loved how this ended, but at the same time, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that's pretty interesting. Maybe my boy Sam Raimi did cook. One other thing I want to talk about that's kind of building off of what I said, and I slightly mentioned it in the beginning of this movie, is that this is sort of like a thriller horror film, but it's also kind of like a horror comedy, and this movie's very funny. Like, seriously, this movie's hysterical at times, whether that's intentionally or because something on screen is happening that's so over the top, so ridiculous, and or just so gross, or someone's making a crazy face in an insane scenario that you can't help but laugh. And it feels that's what Sam Raimi's kind of trying to make you do, is laugh, even though maybe there's not a joke being told. There's just something so out of this world occurring. And I really enjoyed that. I really got a great kick out of that. And I think that's really what separates this film from something like, a Castaway, or just some other, like, typical survival movie or whatever. I think that's truly, like, his charm on screen, is having that little comedic element, allowing the actors to just go crazy, go nuts, do whatever they want. And it was just pretty fun through and through. Couple of really interesting scenes transpire, and I like the way that the plot really develops, and you get to see this relationship morph into something that's kind of sinister, but also just a bit wacky and out of this world. Honestly, I'm pretty much wrapped up with this review. I think I am going to sit on a very solid 3.5 out of 5. I think that this is a great time at the theater. I would highly recommend seeing this, especially because there really isn't that much other stuff out in the theaters right now. So if you're just kind of dying to go to the movies, or maybe you just want to do something different, I think that you could have a very fun time with this, but definitely know what you're walking into. It's not just your typical horror film. It's also not just like some random comedy. It's pretty complex. There's a lot of different things going on. It's a lot of fun, but also it can get pretty I swear to God, I did not say that on purpose. I was trying to mix up deep and sick and twisted into one word for some reason, and that's what came out. Jesus Christ. Honestly, I'm not going to cut that. I'm just going to let that rock. But yeah, 3.5 out of 5. This is a crazy movie, and I think it's pulling the silliness and craziness out of me. But let me know what you guys thought about this movie, or if you were excited for this movie. I highly recommend it. But listen, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.